Ultimate Drummer is both a difficult game to talk about and yet a game I desperately want to talk to everyone about. Because in the tradition of games like Frog Fractions and the Stanley Parable, the less you know about this game, the better. That said, viewer, I think we can both make it through this video with me having adequately communicated the reason you might want to play this game without you having it spoiled. Because there is an amazing creative backstory that sets this whole thing up, and it's all based on one of my favorite YouTube channels of the past decade. A channel that posts insane, funny, lewd and messed up 3D animations that somehow seem to have an artistic vision behind them. I'm talking, of course, about Cool 3D World. For this video, I talked to Brian Tesler and John Bacon, the creators of both Cool 3D World and their video game project Ultimate Drummer, demo available now as part of Computer Worlds. But in this video, we're going to dive into the thick, fatty meat of the story. Why they made their weird channel, why they decided to make a game, and why Ultimate Drummer is more than it might initially seem. And it all started when a mutual friend introduced the two of them because of their mutual love of electronic music.
We've been doing this since like 2015 now, so over a decade. Neither of us had any sort of background in any visual work. We're both musicians. So I come from like a classical background, and John more of like a music production background and sound design background. We linked up, and at the time, John, you were like also exploring some visual aesthetic stuff as well, and we decided to make a music video together. That was really the beginning of the project. Like, let's make some music and some 3D animation, and that was the start of Cool 3D World.
Brian had started playing around with Poser, a fairly rudimentary 3D modeling package that allowed him to post weird images on Tumblr. When Poser added animation to the package, the path had been laid before him. Over the next few years, the two would collaborate, making these bizarre, uncomfortable, evocative, and just hilarious 3D animations, consistently building a fanbase that now totals around 1 million on YouTube and 500,000 on Instagram. Eventually, they were able to leave their 9-to-5 jobs, as the two of them had built individual creative freelance careers in the worlds of music production and VFX. Cool 3D World would help them pitch client work, but for them the channel was always their creative baby, a place where they could express their purest ideas and music.
We definitely have made it work. Like, the work hasn't really suffered. Like, we don't compromise at all, like, for better or for worse, I guess. But we've like I haven't had an actual job since I left, my full-time job in 2017. So like,
we quit our jobs a 9-to-5, but I'd still definitely describe myself as a freelancer, like sound design, visual collaborations with for bigger brand white label like you described. Cool 3D World is definitely not a full-time job and a full-time provider. It's kind of the thing we, like Brian said, we preserve and we don't compromise on. So, and we do other things so that it can be like that.
You probably already know if Cool 3D World is a channel for you, so I'm not going to try and give you the deep lore lesson on why I adore it so much, but I wanted to ask the lads what some of their favorite videos are, and perhaps unsurprisingly, it was the more complex videos that they both warmed to.
One that stands out to me from the last couple of years is Earth and Fire. That's it's a longer one. It's like 6 minutes long or something, and a lot happens. And specifically the score was like really, we have like, there's like a death metal section, and like it's also very like it's so cinematic in a lot of ways. I'd say that one in the past couple of years like stands out to me as like, okay, this is something bigger.
There's a bunch of different benchmarks, I feel like, where like things sort of took a new trajectory. I think the Once Upon a Pretzel video was like when we really locked into like continuity and trying to like do storytelling. It was like pretty earnest, that one, in comparison to some of the other ones where it was a little more stream of consciousness. Like, this one sort of had like a pretty straightforward narrative as much as one could from us. Then there's like the Men in Chairs video. Just a short one, but it was using like Octane render for like, it was one of the first ones that did that, and it like had a really nice quality to it. And that one went like super viral in this way that sort of like put us on a new trajectory.
So, why the jump to games? Well, it turns out this story is one we've heard before. In January of 2025, we interviewed the developers of 1000 Times Resist, a group of performance artists who took a swing at game dev during the pandemic. And it turns out that being locked in your apartment in New York during COVID was also the inspiration for John to download Unreal.
It was around COVID time. There was a lot of free time. I think actually my roommate at the time, Gabe, showed me Unreal Engine. He was like messing around with, I don't know, like a prefab thing that he bought or something, and I just started messing around with it too. And it was a few years though of like playing with it, and then I'd get like a gig, or we'd get something that would come up, and I'd put it down. And but it was definitely me pushing Brian, like, dude, this is the next thing. This thing is huge. Forget everything that you've learned and worked hard on. You're gonna suck at a new piece of software. Like, it's been 8 years. You're really good at cinema. It's too bad. Let's start from scratch and be absolute trash at software again. Because that's what it felt like. It was just like throwing everything away because it's so different. We had talked about like reaching out to people, like maybe we could get a programmer. But I think ultimately it would have been better to just learn it, and finding the blueprint system was the way to do it, because with like Unity, you had to just use code, and even though everyone was using that to make indie games, it just felt like still like too much to learn. And the visual language of the blueprints felt really similar to modular synth, like patching for me. So I could think of the nodes. It felt like at least somewhat more achievable.
We had all these ideas, and we started working on multiple things all at once. And then like eventually we like John said, we showed some friends just like a mix of like various things to sort of see what would stick. And the drummer was like clearly, okay, this is obviously worth exploring.
The guys gave me access to an in-development build of Ultimate Drummer late last year, and I've also played the Steam demo that hopefully you are downloading and wishlisting already. But it's a difficult game to talk about because so much of the joy of experiencing Ultimate Drummer is finding out exactly what type of game you're playing. It has clear inspirations from Software titles, Shadow of the Colossus and Zelda, but its mechanics, enemies, and world design are absurd and unique. So how exactly do they pitch the game themselves? So when you are at Thanksgiving dinner and one of your like nieces or nephews comes up to you and asks, tell me about the video game you're working on, how do you explain it to them?
This is a huge problem for us because you're supposed to be able to describe the thing we're working on. I think I usually start with 3D platformer, and then I'll say, but you're a drummer.
Yeah, it's a game where you play drums too. That's big.
It's a game where you play drums, yeah.
Like that's big. That's how I describe it. It's like you can sequence a drum set and move around in a 3D space.
Yeah, because it's not like you're just playing a drummer. You're playing a drummer who's drumming.
This was one of my first sketches in Unreal, just playing with state machines and layered bone, so I think that's what the node is. I was like, I can have independent arms doing things, like that's good for drumming. So, and then I just always used the third-person character template. So I had this state machine and had all these different poses that could be triggered, but he could always jump. So the idea, like, you hit spacebar, he would just jump, and I was like, so that idea was always there, like, this is funny. Like, if we're being honest, it's much more of a exploration 3D platformer game than it is, like, you'd have to kind of make an argument to call it a rhythm game, though there's a lot of stuff you can do with the drum kit, and you're kind of, I don't want to say too much about it, but like, it does control things around you to a degree. It's also just like a skin for us to make fun exploration-based, 3D platforming.
Yeah, I only started playing, like John introduced me to the Souls games a couple years ago, and it blew my mind, and I couldn't stop playing. Much like John, it was just like I could not put it down. Yeah, another game that like I do feel like there's some elements of it in there that I loved was Journey, which I know everyone talks about and says is amazing. But like, I don't know, Journey feels like it's a spiritual journey, and there's no words, and there are these kind of like bespoke little puzzles that you figure out, and there's a lot of elements of that in there as well.
9 years ago, we created a documentary about Frog Fractions and Frog Fractions 2, which dove into the absurdity of creating a game that is better played when nobody knows anything about it. Ultimate Drummer has this problem, but another one too. Not only do the team want people to dive into this with as little context as possible, but the graphical style of this game means it could be easily misunderstood as some sort of asset flip spamware that nobody should give a second thought to. Ultimate Drummer is an intentional piece of creative work with an identity and artistic style that these two have honed over a decade of collaboration. But even fans of Cool 3D World thought that this was all a joke when the game's trailer was posted on their YouTube channel. Even me, somebody who interviews developers for a living, wasn't sure if this was a bit.
Well, first of all, people just don't know that it exists, because even though we have a bunch of followers, it's just so much harder to get views on things, especially if you're trying to promote something. It seems like the algorithm knows. But I think a lot of people, at least on the first trailer we put out, thought it was a bit, and when they actually saw the Steam page, they'd be like, "Oh, it's real!" So yeah, it's a huge problem.
Yeah, people don't. If we do anything besides our videos, people don't think it's real. Like, we put out an album of music 7 or 8 years ago, and we like made a trailer for the album, and people didn't think the album was real. They thought it was like.
I was shocked when I saw the numbers on like one of the trailers, like 500,000, 800,000 million views on some of your videos, and then the trailer does like 30.
Yeah, we don't really post enough. We never did, but I think now you're rewarded a lot more when you post more. Having said all this, the game is still quite short, and there's only so much we want to share without showing you a whole playthrough of the game or something.
Brian and John said that the demo has helped a lot of people realize that this is an actual game, and while they are both the type of people who are deeply disinterested in self-promotion, they desperately want people to know that Ultimate Drummer is a true creative project worthy of consideration. So do them, me, and creative lunatics around the world a favor. Wishlist Ultimate Drummer today, download the demo, and consider picking it up when it launches next month. If Computer Worlds has taught me anything, it's that the beating heart of creative games development exists in this space. It's just up to people like us to make sure that the blood keeps pumping. Alright, play us out, Ultimate Drummer.